Hello, guys, and welcome to this edition of CastCast. I am your host, Cass D. Streeter, and I am going to be going briefly over which game and what teams I expect to win and who the losers will be for this week. And I'm going to be going through it, looking at the injury report to make sure there's nothing I missed, the final injury reports, and who is out and who is in for these games. So starting off, we have the Colts against the Ravens at M&T Bank Stadium in Baltimore. So the Colts, it is well known that Anthony Richardson exited last week with a concussion, and they were still able to beat the Texans. Ryan Kelly out with a concussion as well. Questionable. Quentin Nelson, I think this is, if he doesn't play, it's really, really, really bad for the Colts. I think it's bad that Richardson doesn't play because I think that this was going to be an uphill battle regardless of whether or not Richardson played as well as Quentin Nelson. And, Ryan Kelly is a huge blow as well. Losing your starting center is, really bad in today's league. The Ravens, though, have a lot of injuries, a lot of guys out. Odell Beckham, Ronnie Stanley, Tyler Linderbaum, Marlon Humphrey, free safety Marcus Williams, and then Justice Hill, who I think has come in and done a good job since Dobbins' season-ending injury. But looking at this, I still think it's like you have Lamar Jackson, you have the better QB, you probably still have the better defense, to be honest with you. I want to say, Ravens. I think that Lamar Jackson's going to prove to be too much to handle. And unless the Colts can, do something where they are, milking the clock or something like that, I don't really see an avenue in which that they win. So, Baltimore Ravens, I want to say like 28 points to 17 in favor of the Ravens. Moving on, we have the Titans at the Cleveland Browns. The Titans, to me, don't have, a ton of injuries. Obviously, if D-Hop doesn't play, that's kind of big. Peter Skoronski not being in is bad. Kyrus Jackson not being in. I think a guy that's a rookie for them, it's never good when you draft a guy and then he's not playing and he's already got an injury this early because he needs to get that game time experience. But for the Browns, Greg Newsome being out, that's kind of a bad blow to their young corner. James Hudson questionable, but obviously not a lot of injuries here. I do want to say I think that the Browns win this game. I think that now that even though Nick Chubb is injured, I think that the Titans are kind of prone to a loss here. I think that they kind of fluked in their one lone win where it's like I don't think that they should have won. And I think that the Browns, even with Nick Chubb being hurt, they're bringing back Kareem Hunt, who I think, even though it seemed like they were ready to move on, they know that he is a serviceable back. And he's going to be able to make up some of that production without them being completely depleted at the run backing position. So I'm going to go Cleveland Browns against the Tennessee Titans, and I am going to say I think that the Browns win this game. I think that they're going to win it 23-14. Against the Titans. Moving on, we have Falcons in Detroit. The Falcons obviously coming off an impressive comeback win against the Packers last week. Then the Lions coming off a loss to the Seahawks where they gave up a lot of points. It was a very high scoring game. I think that the Falcons defense is going to be able to put pressure on Jared Goff. I think that they put a good amount of pressure on Jordan Love, even though, there was for the Falcons, even though, Love had pretty good protection, most of the game, but they were just coming up with good schemes, good plays, very feisty type of game. I also think that because of the way the Detroit Lions are, that they essentially are a high passing game, and the Falcons really can just milk the clock once they get their guys going. Bijan and their other running back. I think that, even with, Jeff Okudah possibly not playing and Cordell Patterson not playing, who didn't play last week, I think that looking at the Lions, I mean, David Montgomery is doubtful. That's really bad. Questionable is Reynolds and Amon-Ra St. Brown, two of their wide receivers that, of course, are starters, and it's never good. Toe injury, it's always going to affect like how you run, move. Same with the groin. Groin injuries are never good. But yeah, in terms of who's out, they have Taylor Decker, Kirby Joseph, and Emmanuel Mosley. I think the Detroit Lions' problem is that they let up way too many points, and it doesn't seem like their team has really improved much on the defensive end from last year. So looking at this game, I expect, even though it's at Ford Field, which the Lions lost at last week, I think that I have to give the Falcons the game here, and I think that they score 28 to the Lions. I think that they score 24, which I know is, maybe a lot closer than what I've said, but I think the Falcons could easily run away with this game with a banged up, defense and an offense that is obviously pretty banged up with three of their main guys, possibly playing. But, if Montgomery's not playing, who do they have? They have the rookie at running back in that case, who is, for the most part, kind of unproven at this point. So who knows how, much of their game plan is going to be affected by that, whereas the Falcons are very healthy, and they've shown that they're fine without Cordell Patterson. Moving on, we have the New Orleans Saints at the Green Bay Packers. I know that this is my team's home opener this season. The Saints 2-0, having just beat the Panthers on Monday Night Football. Jamal Williams out. Unfortunate. Obviously, having been on the Packers 2 years ago, I love Jamal Williams. I am happy, I guess, that we don't have to go up against him, because I remember him gouging us last year when he was on the Lions. Foster Moreau not playing, that's kind of big. And then Paulson Abito not playing with a hamstring injury. And questionable Hugo Amadi. The Packers, for this game, we have Zane Anderson out, safety. The big blow here, Elton Jenkins, our star guard / tackle. And then questionable is Aaron Jones, Watson, Jair Bakhtiari, and Lucas Van Ness. Obviously, all of these guys, besides Van Ness, are starters, but Van Ness being our top overall pick this year, it's really hard for me to say, I guess, who's going to play. I know that Jair's injury is fairly frequent. I think it happened on Friday. Bakhtiari, I think, is kind of slated to not play, to be honest with you. I think that this might be a smokescreen, and that they're gonna start Rashid Walker. To me, though, if Jones and Watson can both play, that'll be huge. The Saints, if Jair Alexander, can't play or is in limited capacity, are probably gonna have to play a little bit more conservative of a defense, because of the way that the Saints, have been throwing the ball with Mike Thomas and Olave. I would like to give my Packers the win on this, but it's kind of unknown. The Saints, obviously, this is the last game that they don't have. Oh my goodness, I'm trying to think of his name. Their star running back off of his 3-game suspension, but they've shown that with Taysom Hill and their other running back that they still have a run game. I'm really conflicted because I think that the Packers have been getting a lot of pressures on QB, and I think that they match up well where it's like. So I think this is going to be a close game, but I just don't see. I don't know. I don't see the New Orleans Saints spoiling the home opener at Lambeau. So I'm going to say Packers 27 to the Saints 24, because I think that the Packers could have learned a lot from last week, where they had control of the game up until the fourth quarter, and it's going to help them grow. And I think that they got enough on the Saints from Monday night on ways that they may be able to beat them from the Panthers. Houston Texans at the Jacksonville Jaguars, divisional matchup. The Texans, Laramie Tunsil being out, their huge left tackle, that is not good. And then Denzel Perriman being out, not good as either. And Jalen Petrie, young safety for them, is also out, never good. Derek Stingley being out is also huge. They're essentially their best corner. And another Texans cornerback out. So this is a game that I think Jacksonville, with how many mistakes they made last week, being unable to beat the Chiefs when it was very possible for them to win. I think that, I'm definitely, even though the Jaguars, Zay Jones is out, who has a good rapport with Trevor Lawrence, Antonio Johnson being out, not good at all. But questionable, we have, Josh Allen. If he doesn't play, that's not really good for the pass rush, and that's going to be very good for the Texans. Andrew Wingard, But looking at this, I full-heartedly think that the Jaguars come away with a win here to improve to 2-1. And I think that the score, I don't think that they're going to put up a colossal number of points. I could be wrong. I think that they score 24 to the Texans 17. Moving on to Broncos at Miami. Given the way that Denver lost last week and showed that their defense is very questionable, which is shocking because they were in terms of efficiency, they were the 6th best unit last year in the NFL, even though they were on the field probably far more than any other because the offense was really bad and is still pretty bad. I don't like the Broncos offense. Even though they were able to get up last week against the Commanders, they showed that they can fizzle out really quick. And with the way Miami is playing, I expect the Broncos to get carved up in this game. Looking at this, Waddle has a concussion. He's questionable. If I'm honestly about to look this up. So they ruled out Waddle. Not good. But they still have, obviously the cheetah, Tyreek Hill. Looking at the rest of their injuries, Teron Armstead, not good here. Raquan Davis. Tyler Croft there. I'm pretty sure they're. And then Jalen Phillips. So, yeah, running back, Salvon Ahmed. I don't think this is a huge blow. I think Raheem Mostert has proven that he still has, spark and jump in those legs. And the Dolphins just have so many weapons anyway. Obviously, without having Waddle, it's a blow. But I still think that the Dolphins, with the way that Tua's been playing, I think that they they're really gonna, take it to Denver. I want to say that I think that they're gonna score 31 points to Denver's. I honestly just don't trust this team. I think that they score 20, honestly. Maybe not even that. That might be being generous, to be honest. But yeah, Dolphins over Denver in Miami. Next up, we have the Los Angeles Chargers versus the Minnesota Vikings. One of these teams will obviously get their first win. I personally, the Chargers, you have Austin Eckler still out, which is unfortunate. They've still shown that they've been close in games without Eckler. And I think that's just a testament to Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert, I think, is just an exceptional talent, very accurate, can even scramble when he needs to be. Eric Kendricks being out kind of sucks. But also Eric Kendricks was on the Vikings last year, so he's probably telling them all about like what the defense runs, kind of the inside scoop. So the Vikings are going to have to probably change their game plan into something that is unproven because of that. Questionable. We have Joey Bosa, Chris Rumpf, Deion Henley, and Christopher Hinton. All right, this isn't giving me the information I want. But yeah, going back to this, if Bosa doesn't play, I don't think I could say that it's a huge blow. So far this season, one crazy thing is that Khalil Mack has 0 pressures on QBs, but he does know the Vikings well enough. So I think that, he's probably going to have that itch to maybe, prove that he can still dominate a team like this because he was on the Bears, But, and he knows, he also knows that it's like if you pressure Kirk Cousins, you don't have to sack him, that he's more than likely to miss throws. I honestly would like to say that I think that the Chargers are going to win this game, which I am going to predict that. But I think that it's a close game where it's like the Vikings, they were the kings of close games last year. Obviously this year, have been close games too, but they've just had all these turnovers that it's like, this might be the chance that the Chargers to springboard their defense because they have not been playing well either. Neither has the Vikings defense, in my opinion, against subpar teams. I am going to say the Chargers, and I think that they win this game 27 to 24 over the Vikings. And I think it's really bad too, I guess, that Marcus Davenport isn't playing for the Vikings, and if Garrett Bradbury doesn't play, that is really bad for the Vikings. Moving on, we have New England Patriots at the New York Jets at MetLife Stadium. For the Patriots, it's Sidy Sow with a concussion and Jonathan Jones with an ankle injury. Cole Strange, Christian Barmore, and Mike Onwenu. I think it's kind of bad that they have all these injuries to their O-line. But the New England Patriots have always had a very well-coached offensive line, in my opinion, where they don't give up that much pressure. And with a QB like Mac Jones, who can run but isn't a running quarterback, I think that they're going to be just fine. I think it's bad. I do think it's bad if Barmore isn't playing. That hurts their run defense. But looking at the New York Jets and who's out for them, was Schweitzer, Dwayne Brown, and then Tony Adams. And then questionable is John Franklin Myers and Greg Zuerlein. This is kind of bad to me because you want a good kicker like Zuerlein, Otherwise, your kicking is really up in the air, and every time you have to kick, it's always a game time sort of decision on whether you want to go for it, punt it, unless it's a gimme. John Franklin Myers has been having a good year as well. But looking at this game, I personally think I like New England. They had to play a weird style of game against Miami when they last played with like 3 deep safeties type of thing. The Jets, it's so up in the air on whether or not Zach Wilson should be the guy. I think if they get an embarrassing loss in this game, which they may, that they might feel the pressure to go for another QB. And with that, I think that New England wins this game. I don't think it's going to be a huge blowout type of thing, because even though I like the Patriots' run game and their pass game, I think it's still kind of conservative at this point, where it's a bunch of dip and dunk balls. And, the run game for New England is very, very good, and I like their young running back. But yeah, but I don't think it's going to be easy against a stout New York Jets defense. And I think Mac Jones is going to have to protect the ball in order for them to have a good shot at winning this game. But I am going to say Patriots 24, New York Jets 20 for this game. Next, we have the Buffalo Bills at the Washington Commanders at FedEx Field. The Bills don't have any injuries, which is really good for them. And obviously, they lost their first game because of a lot of turnovers by Allen. But then the Commanders, you have Logan Thomas out, and that's their only injury. The least amount of injuries we've seen. So, personally, for me, I like the way the Commanders have been playing. They had that comeback win, last week against Denver. But personally, I think that the Bills just aren't as susceptible to be given up the kind of things that like Denver's defense was giving up. I think I'm going to take Buffalo. And I mean, the thing about it is that Buffalo, even though the Commanders are 2-0, I think it's safe to say that you don't want to just keep betting on a quarterback that you don't know is going to do really well. So I am going to go with Buffalo, and I'm going to give them, I'm going to say 23-17 over Washington. Now we go down and we have the Carolina Panthers against the Seattle Seahawks. Obviously, Carolina, having lost last week against New Orleans, barely, kind of getting a pity touchdown at the end of the game. But looking at Carolina against Seattle coming off a huge win against Detroit where their offense finally clicked. I don't think that Carolina's defense is going to measure up well against, Seattle's passing attack as well as their running attack with Kenneth Walker. I think that the Seahawks could honestly just pull far away from Carolina in this game as they seemingly, and I mean, they even don't have Bryce Young, who it's like, I don't think played terrible against the Saints. Showed he had some pretty good patience, but Justin Houston being questionable. The Seahawks, you have Charles Cross out, Kobe Bryant, doubtful, Disley and Woolen. Not good, but I think that they can manage it. Questionable, DJ Dallas, Metcalf, Jamal Adams, and Julian Love, I think are and I guess Jarran Reed. Jarran Reed had a kind of splash season last year with the Packers, and he's kind of a sneaky good player. But overall, I think that Seattle, even if I'm pretty sure Metcalf's going to play because he's a tough guy. But it's like I said, I think that they just had too much of a passing attack with Lockett and Smith-Njigba. So I'm going to give this game to Seattle. I think that they score 27, and I think Carolina scores 20 in this game. Excuse me. Moving on, we have the Cowboys at the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals, interesting to me. It's like, oh, we're going to go for the number 1 overall pick. But they've been battling, every single game. Obviously, Dallas, they suffered an ACL tear to Trevon Diggs in practice this week, a pretty big blow. But I don't think it really matters all too much when you have a pass rush that's as good as the Cowboys with Micah Parsons. I look at the rest of these, and it's like, yeah, you have Tyron Smith and Zach Martin questionable. I think that, and Tyler Biadasz, I probably butchered that. But yeah, you look at the Cardinals, and you have Carlos Watkins and Josh Woods out. Questionable Likai Fodu. But overall, I think that this is one of those games that's just going to be a huge blowout, to be honest with you. And I think that Dallas wins a 34-13 against Arizona. Chicago Bears at Kansas City Chiefs. Honestly, with everything that's been going on with Chicago, I don't think that unless there's some oddball miracle at Arrowhead, I don't think that there's any way that the Bears can win this game. Obviously, for the Chiefs, you have Richie James and Nick Bolton being out is kind of big on their defense, but not as big as if they didn't bring back Chris Jones, who is playing. Questionable is Pacheco, Kadarius Toney, and Willie Gay. Overall, I think that you look at this, and I think, the Bears, it was Khalid Kareem and Eddie Jackson being out is not good for them. It's definitely not going to help their most experienced DB. Then Nate Davis with personal stuff going on. Who knows what's going on there. But the Chiefs, their offense has been kind of, sketch this year. They really haven't seemingly got it going. But I think the second week with having Kelsey back, hopefully they start to mesh better again, and we see the Chiefs that we're used to seeing. And I think that the Chiefs win this game. I think they win this game 31-10, to be honest with you, because the Bears, I don't know what to believe. I think that Andy Reid's going to give Justin Fields a lot of different looks that are going to make him prone to interceptions, to be honest with you. But moving on to the Sunday night game, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Raiders. The Steelers winning a big game and taking a game away from the Browns. Obviously, Nick Chubb got injured, but they were consistently getting after Deshaun Watson. The thing I'll say about the Raiders is that Garoppolo obviously isn't even as mobile and can't escape as well. So it's like, even though it's in Vegas, I really don't think that an overall really healthy Steelers team, only missing wide receiver Gunnar Olszewski, who, isn't even a starter on their team. And then the Raiders do only have one injury of Tyree Wilson. I think that this could be a battle. But overall, I think that Pittsburgh's got too many weapons. And the Raiders defense is just, besides Max Crosby, who on this defense do you really trust to be great? And help him to win the game, because you can't just do it, on defense as one guy. So I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers win this game 28-24 over the Raiders. moving on, we have, heck, I'll just predict the Monday night games. We have the Philadelphia Eagles at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think that even though I think that Tampa Bay is going to lose this game probably because Philadelphia's just got such a... If they do what they did in their last game, and they obviously had a longer break because they played the Vikings on Thursday night, so they've had plenty of time to get ready for this game against the Buccaneers. Obviously, it's an NFC showdown, so it's like it would be huge if the Buccaneers won here and held the tiebreaker over the Philadelphia for later in the season. And I'm not saying I don't think that the Buccaneers can't win. But the Eagles, Boston Scott, unfortunate. Quez Watkins, kind of unfortunate as well. But still not their two major guys with Devonta Smith and Brown. I really don't think that, I really don't think you bet against Philadelphia. And looking at the Buccaneers, you have Cody Mock, Vita Vea with a pec injury, Devin White not having, being in would be huge if he happened to not play. Carlton Davis, who's been playing well with a toe injury. Overall, I think Philadelphia wins this because I think that even though the Buccaneers have a stout run defense with Vita Vea, I don't think you can really plan for, the way that Hurts is going to run and move, too well. And his guys are just, Brown with a quiet game last game, pretty much for most of the game. But I just think that Philadelphia is going to win this to continue their undefeated season. And I think that they're going to win this game. I think that they're going to win this game 23-17 over the Buccaneers. Next, we have, the Rams. Next, we have the Rams against the Bengals. The Rams having a very good season. Obviously, looking at this game, we have Puka Nacua with an oblique injury. I do think he plays, so no injuries for the Rams. Obviously, Puka Nacua played last week, and he had the all-time, 2-game start with the most receptions being 25 over his first 2 games. And if you haven't seen this guy, he's fun to watch. Overall, a very talented player. I think he had, a drop last week that I saw, but overall, proven he was a steal in his round so far. The Bengals, who knows if Joe Burrow plays? Obviously, it's good that he has the extra day. I'm about to look this up, I guess, because it's honestly huge. He's questionable. So, yeah, overall, apparently the injury to Joe Burrow with his calf and his ankle, it's so strange to me that they keep saying calf in the reports, even though, it's been told that it's like an ankle injury. If he doesn't play, this team, even if he does, if it's really affecting him that much, at some point, you kind of have to, as the head coach, I know it's hard with a guy who's not a bona fide future Hall of Famer, but he's, a good QB that's kind of established himself as a guy that's going to be on your team, for a while. You've got to kind of protect him from himself. And if he can't go and he has all these bad games, I actually do think that the Rams win this game. Even if he does play, I think that the Bengals, could still lose, even though it's in Cincinnati at Paycor Stadium. And the Rams just look like kind of a new team. They look really reinvigorated compared to last year. So looking at this, I want to say, I'm going to take the Rams because until the Bengals can prove that they can actually go and do things on offense, I just don't see it with them. They just have left too much doubt in my mind with the poor play of their offense. And, that defense I think is, very complimentary of them. And if they can't do things on offense, maybe they have to run the ball better. They still have Joe Mixon. But you've seen all these injuries to running backs. Maybe they just don't want to commit to a workhorse game for Mixon at the risk of losing him and having their offense completely destroyed. So I'm going to take the Rams, and I'm going to say 24-17 over the Bengals. No, actually, I'm going to say 14. I'm going to say 14 for the Bengals. I think that it's been really tough for them. It's like if Burrow, has this injury and he does play, you're going to have to be dealing with Aaron Donald. And it's like this is a repeat, obviously, of the Super Bowl matchup. And the Bengals are chomping at the bit to get some revenge. But I just don't see it happening, to be honest with you. So, so if you guys, I'm gonna be watching the games. I might do some analysis later. I may not. I am gonna be watching my Packers here, in an hour and 12 minutes. But yeah, overall, I hope, regardless of whether I predicted against your team, I hope, good luck, and I hope we have some good games this weekend. So thank you so much for watching Castcast, and I'll see you next time.